All right, we'll get started. It's 12:03. Thank you for everyone joining. My name is Fred Coons. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for Keystone Precision Solutions. Thank you for joining our monthly webinar series. I know this is a little bit of a break as a lot of us were at Dimensions last month, and we're getting close to the holiday time, but we have some exciting stuff to share with you this morning. From Trimble, we were lucky enough to get Alex Oxen and Jeff Turgeon to join us to talk about the X12. Members of the scanning team, it's awesome having partners that are able to jump on with us directly from Trimble. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of Keystone and just let you know about one promotion we have going, and then we'll move from there. I'll kick it off to the Trimble guys. So we've been in business for 30 years. We're almost going on our 35th in 2024. Again, founded in 1989. We've got 45 employees right now. We cover the majority of the Northeast. Regardless of if you have a service station close to you, we can service, we can support, we can sell to you Trimble equipment. And other than that, I mean, we have you covered. You guys are usually pretty familiar with our salespeople. You're pretty familiar with our support team and our services team. And we live and breathe Trimble here. Next slide. Again, so being aware of the offerings that we have between scanners, laser levels, robotic total stations, GNSS systems, data collectors, things like that. Again, we are a one-stop shop for that. Next slide. So our philosophy and our mission is to provide measurement solutions that increase our customers' productivity and profitability. At the end of the day, if we're not keeping your job site running, we're not enhancing your measurement, we're not doing our job. So we pride ourselves in the ability to be able to do that. Next slide. So what makes us unique? Honestly, it's the customer service, from sales to support to our services team. We really are second to none. I mean, we're trusted by other Trimble dealers to service their equipment. We provide expert level training for the equipment purchased. We service your equipment, whatever you need. Again, we look at ourselves as a solutions provider, not just an order taking shop for equipment. Next slide. And this is the last piece that I'll cover before I kick it over to the Trimble team. Announced today, Wells Fargo and Trimble have worked together to establish 24 months at 0% financing on purchases until the end of the year. So I see 19 of you in the attendees box. We'll be standing by for 19 X12 orders by the end of this webinar. So this offer does expire December 31st, and we're looking forward to educating you guys a little bit about this. Before I kick it to the Trimble team, I will tell you, if you look over at your bar, at your console for a go-to meeting, what we'll ask you to do is to hold questions till the end, but when you do have questions, if you can type them into the chat. What happens at the end is I will moderate that chat, pass questions over to the Trimble team. Alex and Jeff will be able to answer them, or if it's something that they're not able to answer right off the bat, we will circle back with you. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Jeff and Alex.
Awesome, thank you, Fred, and welcome everyone. I hope everybody's having a good Tuesday. So just a little bit about ourselves first before we get started to talk about the X12. So I'm Alex Oxen. I'm a product manager on the hardware side. I'm based out of Westminster, Colorado, and I'm actually originally from Keystone's neck of the woods. I grew up right outside of Boston, Massachusetts.
And I'm Jeff Turgeon. So I just took over the product manager role for scanning software. So that includes RealWorks, Perspective, and I'm also the TBC vertical lead for scanning. And Canadian by roots, and moved to Colorado in June.
Awesome, and yeah, let's get started and let's learn a little bit about the new X12 laser scanner. So starting off, so this is obviously our new high-end scanner that complements the X7 well for applications that require longer distances. So when we really talk about how this unit is accessible, it's really bringing that same simple workflow. If you're familiar with the X7 workflow and Perspective, it's a very easy to use, streamlined workflow to get your scanning project done in an efficient manner without having to go back on site. So if you haven't been able to use the X7 yet or the X12, I highly suggest reaching out to Keystone and getting a demo of the unit to really understand how the software works. And I really think that anybody who uses it will really enjoy it, especially the field crews, and how nice it is to have that tablet with you to be able to register your scans together on the fly. Now, with the X12, it really is a fast scanner that can get you really great data on site really quickly. The shortest scan is up to 23 seconds. One of my favorite features that we'll go into a little bit later is that integrated LED spotlight. I have a little anecdote, but I'll save that for a slide later, but it is really one of my favorite things about this scanner. And dependable. This scanner really can, our MAT team, and when we test this, we really put this through quite a bit to make sure that it was up to the Trimble standard and really getting a lot out of a scanner. Just like with the X7, this has a standard 2-year warranty. And we'll go into it more, but you'll see that unlike the X7 here, this scanner actually has a full onboard interface. And we'll show you the highlights of that a little bit later. So just looking over at the pack out for this scanner, so you get that nice case with the scanner, as well as that T10X tablet with the Gitso tripod. And this seamlessly goes into Trimble Perspective in the field, and then goes right into RealWorks and TBC through just drag and drop. So highlighting some of the key features here. So I'm just going to go through only a few of these things just to highlight. These are all important, and really depending on your application, some of these may be more important to you than others. I highly suggest going to the website and downloading the data sheet to check out the specs a little further. So looking at the range of this scanner, so this is a much longer range scanner than your typical X7. So if you're really trying to do any applications where there's a lot of distant vertical objects, this scanner really will shine in that area. And this is a phase-based scanner. So the X7 and a lot of the scanners in the industry are time of flight, and really the difference between that time of flight scan and a phase shift scan is that it's actually a sine curve. So it's measuring not only how long it takes for the return, but where in the return it is. So this really leads to, you'll notice if you download the sample data set on the website, a lot of the vertical objects are really clean data. And that's really beneficial, especially if you are doing any larger things like a plant or something like that. And then lastly, looking at the imagery, this can be really important depending on what your deliverable is to your clients. This parallax-free imagery really creates a point cloud that looks like real life. And it's really shocking that you can actually look at a point cloud and be able to navigate it as if it is just imagery, because it does look so clean. So looking at some of the scan times and quality settings. So this scanner does have a few more options in terms of how you set your resolution and your quality. So one thing I just really want to highlight here, again, I really think that most people should get a demo to really experience the scanner in whatever application they're doing. But looking at the quality settings here, so that really is reducing your range noise. So if you have an application where you want to have a really tight tolerances on things, you can crank up that quality setting. But honestly, looking at the left-hand side with that speed setting, which is the fastest setting, usually is good enough because the range noise on this scanner is so low inherently. And then as we go up further, you'll see there are some scans that are pretty long, but one of the really great benefits of having these scans is that we have the ability to take area scans. So if there's anything that's of interest, you can use these longer time scans on just a specific focus inside of that station setup. And looking at the camera settings, so really just highlighting this quickly. So there's two options once you decide to turn images on. So that would be fast mode and the smart light. So the smart light we'll get to on the next slide. And that's, again, one of my favorite things about this scanner. But the fast mode really is just changing how many exposures you take at each camera setup. I would say probably about 80% of the time, it's okay to just leave fast mode on and take those less exposures and save a little bit of time on the images. But when you are in more difficult circumstances, it is nice to actually turn fast mode off and get those extra exposures, depending on how much you value the camera settings. So looking at the smart light, so this is the 4 built-in LEDs that surround the camera. So on that picture on the right-hand side, you can see those 4 LEDs, and these are really bright. The anecdote I like to share is when I had first got the X12, I took this scanner into a pitch black room with absolutely no windows, and I had turned the lights off, and I took a scan with the smart light on. And when I looked at the scan data and I looked at the imagery associated with it, I was really shocked to see how well it had actually lit up the room that I was in. It really did a great job, to the point that I ended up staying in the room and taking another scan with the lights off because I thought I accidentally turned the lights on by accident. It really is nice. And coming from someone who did have to take around external lighting because I valued the camera quality, I used to have to go around with external lighting and bring it to the setups to actually bring light. And this is really just getting rid of any extra external lighting that you need. So if there are darker areas in your project and you value the camera, it really is a great highlight of this scanner. Now, looking at the colorization with the Parallax free imagery. So this really is really fantastic imagery, and it really benefits the point cloud quite a bit, because when the camera is offset from the scanner itself, you will see a little bit of a shift sometimes. Usually it's pretty good, but when it is a hardware-based parallax-free image, it turns out really well. So right here, we are actually looking at the point cloud. This is not the camera at all. So you can really see the difference between how well this turns out. You can see all of that art on that tunnel, the grate there on the side, and all of the detail in the concrete. So if there is anything you need to go back to, or if you need to georeference it later, I mean, you can easily navigate through the point cloud and see exactly where you had put down control, and it makes it really nice to go back. So now I will hand it over to Jeff, and he'll talk about Trimble Perspective with the X12, which really is a fantastic setup.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So a major focus of this product development was Trimble Perspective, which is an integral part of the X12 solution. As Alex mentioned, much of this comes down to just how easy Perspective is to use, with a short instruction period, and really anyone can get up and running within a matter of minutes. And this is mostly in large to the UI being set up in such a way that navigating through the different steps of a scanning workflow is intuitive, leaving little downtime so you can maximize your efficiency. And since many of the operations are available on the fly, you can utilize the robust tool sets available, like registration, measurements, and annotations, while your scanner is capturing data. So here's a brief overview of the highlights Perspective brings before I dive into each a little further. So of course, Perspective allows you to control your scanner with scan times, resolution, and images, like Alex mentioned. But you also have the ability to register stations while you're in the field. And there's automatic and manual processes, along with a refine option for the finish. You can perform area scans, so you can provide higher density on specific parts of your site, take in-field measurements, create annotations, and then of course, export your data out so you have a number of file format options. Now, Perspective's default setting is to automatically register the current station to that of the previous station. The process can be performed while the scanner is taking images, while you move to the next station, or during the next station scan itself. You can select your current station to register to another station as well from your project. So all captured stations are available within a drop-down list from the Scan Parameters menu and can act as a reference station. Your project registration can also be verifiable in the field by viewing the 3D display like we're showing here on the right. So there's a variety of tools available to evaluate the quality of your registration so that when you get back to the office, you know everything should come together like it should. And now the ability to perform area scans was a major ask from customers that was delivered with the X12. And based on the positive feedback we received about it, the latest Perspective release also introduced area scans for the X7. Now this tool just fence in a specific part of your project, scan at a higher density, and away you go. You can queue up multiple area scans in a row so that while one area scan is being performed, you can section out area scans for the next sections of your project. So typical uses of this would be to densify coverage on something that's far away, targets for registration or georeferencing, or say something was in the way and now it's no longer obstructed and back in view. So an example of a common workflow to perform area scans would be to do a short full dome scan like the 23-second scan, and then up your density for the specific regions that really need this density. This saves you time from having to complete high resolution full dome scans that will collect points that in the end you don't really need, and it reduces the file sizes of your station. So while your scanner's in action, you may want to check distances, or say a client approaches you and has questions about the scene. You have the ability to take measurements of any collected scan from a station view or a 3D view. By default, slope distances are measured, but this can also be modified so that you apply constraints and obtain horizontal or vertical distances. And you can use this to check clearances, dimensions, or offsets to other objects. You can also use multiple lines to bound areas or identify single points to identify their coordinates. And all this can be done while the scanner is capturing data, allowing you to maximize your time in the field. Now, my favorite part of the X12 is the ability to retake images. I know you've probably all been there where the scanner is taking images of a certain part of your field right when someone rounds a corner, and they're now in your images, like is shown in the graphic here. So after the scan is completed, you can review the images of the station, select the ones you wish to retake, such as the ones containing people in the graphic shown, and only those images will be recaptured. The new photos will be used to colorize the point cloud rather than the originals. And then as a side note, the original images will also be retained so nothing is accidentally deleted. And once satisfied with the project, click Finalize, where you can refine the registration, generate a registration report, and create high quality panoramic images. So also available with the X12 in Perspective is the ability to georeference in the field. So georeferencing points can be defined by the user by creating annotations, where you just zoom in really close on a spot in your field, place the marker, give it an ID, and then save that point. So you would complete this for 3 or more points with strong geometry by good survey practice. And then these annotated points now need control points to apply the georeferencing. So you can either import or type in control points and then match each control point to the annotated georeferencing point. And then Perspective will best fit the georeferencing points with the control points and then display the residual errors to you. Another great part of this system is the workflow flexibility. So you can go into the field with Perspective on your tablet, control the scanner, complete and check registration, and perform all the actions I previously mentioned. Alternatively, say you don't have a tablet, the battery died, or you choose not to use one. You can work solely on the X12 onboard UI. So you have the same ability to choose scan parameters, retake images, perform area scans, just like you could on Perspective. The other option is a combination of both workflows. So for a scenario, say you start your project using the tablet, the battery dies, and you don't want to switch it out. You can complete the remainder of the project using the onboard UI. Once the tablet's battery is swapped out or put back on charge, simply reconnect to the X12 and sync the project. All scans will be imported to Perspective, and then the automatic processing and registration operations will take place. So now I'll hand things back to Alex, who can go over the X12 onboard UI in greater detail.
Awesome, thank you, Jeff. So yeah, really just reiterating almost exactly what Jeff said, but this onboard UI working with Perspective really does work really well. The hybrid functionality of having that onboard UI with Perspective is really beneficial. And we put a lot of effort into making this onboard UI very similar in terms of an easy workflow for somebody that prefers to not carry around the tablet. But again, this hybrid workflow really allows you, if you even need to put down that tablet for any reason and bring the scanner into a scenario where you might not feel comfortable carrying the tablet and the scanner itself, you can just start that scan from onboard and then view it in Perspective if you get out of the way to go back to your tablet. So highlighting the onboard workflow. So when you actually open up the scanner, you'll be prompted to set a Wi-Fi password, but then you'll be able to create a project. So first we can create a project. You have a full QWERTY keyboard accessible on the onboard UI. And once you create that project name, you'll go right into scanning. So similar to the setup in Perspective, you'll be able to choose your resolution, quality, and whether you want images on. And once we're good to go, we can just start that scan. So one benefit of this onboard UI is you can actually see the scan as it's coming live. So even before, if you are looking at Perspective, you can just do the scan dance and walk around the scanner as it's scanning and see the data come up live. And once you're done, you can navigate around the scan and see if there's any issues or anything that you find. And just like with Perspective, you can actually do area scans on board too. So if you do get into one of those situations where you're not able to use Perspective or you choose not to, you still have all of that same functionality in terms of workflow that you have in Perspective on the onboard UI. And just like Jeff was showing with Perspective, you can retake images. So in this one here, I intentionally stood in the images, but yet we're just in a mechanical room and I can easily retake those images. And one thing I want to highlight here with this retake, you can see that you have smart light and fast mode as options as well. So if there is a scenario where there is a darker corner, or maybe you're scanning under the stairs and you don't really have much lighting under there because of whatever building you're in doesn't have that lighting available, or if you're in a trench and there's not much light, you can easily turn the smart light on for specific images to just get a brighter picture for that so that you get a more consistent flow in all of your imagery. So scanning on the onboard UI. So yes, you can adjust your settings. You'll see that in real time, and everything will sync up to Perspective. And with the area scans, just like Jeff mentioned, you can queue up multiple ones even on the onboard UI. So if you do that 23-second scan, you have multiple areas of interest where you're just trying to get good data on those, you can easily set up multiple area scans on a high resolution density to lower that overall scan size. So now looking at Trimble Installation Manager. So a few things I want to highlight here. So one of the coolest things about this scanner in my mind is you can actually keep multiple firmwares on the scanner. So obviously we come out with quite a few Perspective updates, and sometimes I know I'll do this, I'll update Perspective and I will forget to or I'll update the scanner and I'll forget to update perspective. But with this, I can always keep on one firmware behind. So if there are any problems and I forgot to update perspective, I can just go back to the last firmware and it will work seamlessly with perspective. The other thing to highlight too is that the perspective software itself is identical to the X7. So if you ever get into a scenario where you are using an X7 and an X12 on site, it is that same download, and the software will automatically identify what scanner's connected and give you all of the correct parameters to be able to scan. And now I'll hand it over back to Jeff and he'll talk a little bit about the Office software.
Thanks, Alex. So with X12 and Perspective, there are a number of export options available to you, so you can bring your project into your Office software of choice. So file formats such as industry standard E57 can be converted right on the tablet. And then if you're using a Trimble Office software such as Trimble RealWorks or Trimble Business Center, you can use the familiar Trimble point cloud formats such as TZF files or a TDX project. You can simply drag and drop your project into your Office software and utilize the full capabilities of these powerful platforms. And this includes visualization, segmentation, modeling, inspection, and any of the other numerous deliverables available from the Trimble geospatial ecosystem. Now back to Alex for some applications specific to the X12.
Awesome. Yep. So I'm going to go through a few of the applications and we'll wrap it up from our side. So if you do start to think of questions, please start populating them in the chat and we'll get to those once I run through this. So looking at the first one, so topographic and general survey. So really, I just want to highlight some of the benefits. This scanner really can be used in most applications, but some of the best things about this scanner for general survey really is looking at the power of the Office software and what you can do in the field. So assigning labels and images, so really going through that annotation workflow, and if you are going to georeference, having all of that data coming right into TBC really makes it beneficial if there is someone in the office that's doing things differently than the person in the field so that they can know what's going on in the field. And again, in the Office software, we have the ability to auto-classify quite a few things now, and being able to extract out your ground and having that point cloud data. Instead of having just one point cloud, you're able to really segment out your point cloud. And looking at cultural heritage, so really the benefit here is the quality of the camera and that high resolution and low range noise. When there are historical sites, some of the most important things are making sure that you can color match if they're trying to restore something back to how it was originally, and also having really great detail. So if you are able to capture something before it deteriorates, you're able to really have a great image of what it looked like. And when it does deteriorate, you're able to actually restore it to that original quality. And again, verifying your data and having perspective with you is extremely important in this scenario, because a lot of historical sites might be a little far away from your office. So making sure that you have all the data you need before anything does deteriorate further is really just a great benefit. Looking at civil infrastructure, so this scanner can go really far and can help scanning bridges, landslides, things of that nature, where you need to get all of the data there and you have to get it quickly. One of the really great benefits, again, is those area scans. So if there is a specific point of interest on a bridge or something, you're really able to get that at high resolution and very low range noise. And again, verifying that in the field before you go back to the office. I'm looking at digital twins. So depending on who you are giving your deliverable to, images are just really important, especially if something is going to somebody like an architect. And having a point cloud that is much more digestible with having such great scan resolution, but also that colorized imagery, where I know a lot of architects will like to go through the imagery, and when you have again, such a great quality. You're able to much more easily navigate the point cloud, and it makes their life easier as well. And then looking at industrial survey, so this scanner does really well on some of those difficult surfaces. So if you're inside of a plant and there's a lot of shiny piping and things like that, you're able to up the quality and really get some good detail on any joints or valves or anything in particular that you're looking at as you're going around a plant. And again, you can use the great resolution if you are trying to get onto a plant coordinate system and being able to make sure you have all the detail you need on any control you have as well. And then looking at tank calibration and inspection. So again, one of the highlights here is that LED smart light. So obviously inside of a tank, it's pretty dark. And if there is anything in there that you do need good imagery on, if there is any enhancements coming to that tank, you're able to just turn that LED smart light on and have imagery inside the tank instead of having to run any power into the tank to be able to actually get those images. And then shipbuilding. So one of the really great benefits about this scanner is that 0.3 meter minimum range. So that is pretty tight, and a lot of ships have some pretty tight spaces, especially when we look at ballast tanks, which are becoming more and more common to scan as people prepare to actually retrofit them for new water treatment systems so that they're able to empty the ballast tanks without being not following the IMO mandates that have changed to prevent people from putting water where they shouldn't. And again, the high detail of this scan and the range allows you to not only scan inside of those tight spaces, but also in those larger spaces that are on ships once you get up to the very large fleets. And lastly, forensics. Again, any forensic scenes, so obviously a scene could happen day or night, and having those LED spotlights to be able to capture images on a crime scene when it is during the nighttime is really beneficial for any police that are using this. And this really would go towards more of a high-end crime lab that's interested in really capturing a lot of detail inside of the forensics reveal software. And again, with the annotations carrying over from the Trimble X7, they're able to document things on site with both the camera of the scanner, but also the camera of the tablet. And just highlighting a few things from some of the first people that got to look at the scanner. The one that really stands out, and we'll leave it on this so you guys can read through some of this, but the one that really stands out to me is from Norway. So one thing that I really like about this scanner is how easy it is to use and how intuitive it is for somebody to pick up. What Eric had said was he could get somebody up and running any new hire in 30 minutes and be able to produce usable results in the field to be able to complete projects. So whenever they do need to scale up and have more people, if they have a lot of work, they can easily do that and get somebody up and running. And really the highlight here is that the high-end scanning being more only geared towards experts is really a thing of the past. And now with the intuitive workflow, it is able to be really used by anybody. And thank you. Yeah,
thanks for your time, and we'll open it up to any questions now, Fred.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Alex and Jeff, you guys, as always, excellent partners from Trimble. Thank you so much for joining us. Does anybody have any questions down in the chat? I don't see any just yet, but we'll give it a couple minutes. Again, we'll take this time to reiterate until December 31st of 2022. You guys can take advantage of financing through Wells Fargo at 0% interest for 24 months. Would look good with an X12. The other thing too is if there's anything that we didn't cover in this webinar. Our consultative sales professionals will be able to answer any questions you guys might have. If you don't know who your sales consultant is, which would be pretty rare, I would assume, feel free to email directly sales@keypre.com. We'll get you in touch with somebody. If there's anything on the technical end that we can't cover, we're lucky enough to have partners like Jeff and Alex that we can reach out to and use as a sounding board. People that have been intricately involved in the X12 with Trimble since conception. So again, very lucky to have that, and thank you so much for everyone who joined. I'll give it another 30 seconds to see. I think Alex and Jeff, you guys, for lack of a better term, you guys crushed it today. I think you guys covered on all the important pieces. We're obviously happy to take any questions, discuss this further outside of a webinar experience. We wish everybody a happy holiday, a happy new year. We know we're coming up on year's end, so keep an eye out for our next webinar sometime in January. We'll also be at a number of different trade shows coming up in the new year, some of our larger ones, with many of our consultative sales people there, as well as our support team that is able to go in. A lot of these, much of our support team are former surveyors that have physically been in the field, hands-on with this stuff. So looking forward to a great 23. I hope everyone has a safe and happy holiday. Looks like Jeff and Alex, you guys covered everything because we actually don't have anything here. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and give everybody 20 minutes back of their day, and everybody have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.